Our series that starts today is Family Matters. Family Matters, first looking at Genesis 9. Just curious, does anyone remember that TV show? Did anyone watch Family Matters? Okay, yes, and I was drawing a blank on it, and then I remembered Winslow and, of course, Urkel. I guess who didn't know Steve Urkel there? All right, so Family Matters was an American television sitcom that originally aired on ABC for 8 seasons, from September 22nd, 1989 till May 9th, 1997. Then moved to CBS for its 9th and final season from September 97 to July 98. A spinoff of Perfect Strangers. It's funny, when I was writing this last night, I remember Perfect Strangers, the title, but I can't remember what that was about. I meant to Google what Perfect Strangers was. But Family Matters was a spinoff of Perfect Strangers. The series revolved around the Winslow family, a middle-class family living in Chicago. And I think the dad was a police officer, if I remember right. Midway through the first season, the show introduced the Winslow's nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel. Midway through the first season, that blew me away. I just thought he was always there. Jaleel White, the actor, originally as a one-time appearance. However, he quickly became the show's breakout character and eventually the main character, joining the main cast. And I just thought that was funny. I didn't know. I just thought, like, to me, when I think Family Matters, oh, Urkel. And so later, come to find out, the original plan was for him to only have one appearance. Running for 215 episodes over 9 seasons, Family Matters became the second longest running live action American sitcom with a predominantly African-American cast behind what, no, this is some of your ages, behind what TV series? What TV? What's, yeah, I didn't think about that. That was great. Shame on me. I should have thought of that. I was thinking a little bit before that. Do you have another guess? Yeah, but I'm with you. How is it not the Cosby Show? That's interesting. Yeah, so when I was reading that, I'm like, oh yeah, the Jeffersons. Well, I remember the Jeffersons. Everybody knew watched the Jeffersons. So Family Matters was second only to the Jeffersons that had 253 episodes over 11 seasons. So while the TV sitcom Family Matters was funny with Urkel and his "Did I do that?" You remember that? And the high pants and the bow ties. While Family Matters, the TV sitcom, was funny, Family Matters, the series we're looking at, is anything but a laughing matter. Right? Well, God meant for family life to be, among other things, an analogy that I use that, the Bible, I think, would agree with. Family, in terms of God's original intent, was meant to be an oasis, a place of refuge in a surrounding world of chaos and sin and hatred and stuff. So while family was meant to be an oasis and a break from the pressures of life, oftentimes it's family life that is the source of some of our greatest hurts. Right? Family life, in terms of God's original intent, his whole reason for creating the family, the foundation for human society, was meant to be a blessing, a place of joy, a place of retreat and refuge. But oftentimes, and hence this series, family dynamics, family matters, family issues can be some of the sources of our deepest pain. Again, not talking about any one or family in particular, just speaking in general. I don't know who will listen to this broadcast or who is or who will be passed it on. So again, family matters is no joking matter when the first family matter issue, marriage, right? God's intent for marriage is to be, companionship, the fulfillment of sexual desires, helping one another in their calling. But for some families, marriages are anything but that. They're just empty, with kind of two people living in the same house. So this series looked at, well, what does God have to say about that? What comfort or help can be with me if our hypothetical Mildred and Pete are married, and sure, from the outside it looks fine, but inside they don't share anything. It's just, they're to sleep in the same house. They go to work, come home, go to their respective room, watch TV, repeat. Family matters is no joking matter. For some of us who might have sibling strife, some of us that were at siblings, again, not thinking of anyone in particular, some of us, we might have something where, our siblings, most of the times it's combative, but even when it's not combative, it's not like we're close. It's not like other families we see where it seems like the siblings are so close. As we know, some of us are dealing with the inability to be involved with our kids' life, our grandkids' life. So this series seeks to look at a little bit of how family matters, though it's meant to be an oasis for us. For some of us, it's a source of deep hurt and deep pain. So our next slide. So this series will look at, our series Family Matters, will look at first thing, which is today's message. We're going to look at all families are jacked up. Right? But believe it or not, there's a comfort to that. There's a comfort to that. There's a freeing to know, which we're going to look at today, just some. We're going to look at some of the big names of the Bible, righteous, awesome, big name families of the Bible, but we're going to see they're jacked up. But again, not to give away the whole service, but there's a comfort, there's a freeing, to me at least, to know that, hey, I am not unique at 22 Londonderry Way, seeing how jacked up my house is, right? So every family is messed up. And of course, the theological term to replace jacked up is fallen. All of our families, there's no families who's just perfect and everything is working well. All families east of Eden. Beautiful imagery that God uses a bunch east of about life outside of the Garden of Eden. Since Adam's disobedience, we all live east of Eden, right? Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, never to return. All families are fallen, are jacked up now that we live east of Eden. Second part of this series, we're going to look at God's original intent for families. God's original intent for families. So hopefully that might be an encouragement for us to know that, hey, what you expect in your family, what you expect from your kids or your grandkids and how you should be able to relate to them, we're going to see that, hey, that expectation is probably in line with what God wants and expects as well. So what was God's original intent? All families are broken. Well, what did God originally mean for it to be? And of course, that means that God can get us to where he wants it to be. In short, we'll look at how it's a window. God made families to be a window for the unbelieving world to look through and see this is what God's like, a conduit, we could say, an oasis, a lighthouse for others on the block. Thirdly, we're going to look at some practical thoughts on resolving family dynamics. Right? So maybe there's some practical things. And of course, I'm not saying this whole series, or the Sunday we look at some practical thoughts on resolving some family dynamics. Those things may not be cure-alls. Maybe it's more counseling or bringing the family together. And again, I'd love to be able to help. But we'll see from 35,000 feet a couple broader concepts that can help smooth out. What do I do in this situation? Okay, so here, my brother, and I'm making up something. My brother, we had a couple beers at the Super Bowl two years ago. That was 2 years ago. He's still not talking to me. What can I do to resolve that? Practical thoughts on resolving family dynamics. And then fourthly, the last thing the last thing we'll look at is comfort and encouragement for us in our family matters. Right? So maybe Mildred would say that, Dorian, you nailed it. Pete and I are married, and sure, we don't fight in public or whatever, but if you were to come live with us, Dorian, make him dinner, he cuts the grass, but that's pretty much, it's just a contract. We're not really married. Mildred would say, I can't remember the last time he got me a card or a flower. We never go on a date. We never go into movies. It's just him and his NASCAR. And, he does the chores that he's supposed to do. I'm supposed to do the chores I'm supposed to do. What's the comfort and encouragement for Mildred in that situation? Or some of us who, I would love to be more involved with my grandkids' life. I didn't do anything wrong. Here, I'm shut out from their life. What comfort and encouragement specifically would God have for that? So hopefully each of the points will be an encouragement, but for sure, I'll try to hammer it home on the fourth point. Excuse me. All right, so our first point today in this series, Family Matters, is all families are jacked up. All families are jacked up, or what the theological term for that is fallen. The first example we're going to see is Noah and his son Ham. Noah and his son Ham. So again, we're going to see this in Genesis 9:18-25. Those of you that might be following along or using an app. But before I say this, a kind of little note about the book of Genesis. The sins, any sin you read about in the book of Genesis, is purposely nebulous. It's unclear. It's like, well, like what really happened, right? So if you're reading Genesis and you read about a sin, one, I think it's I offer strange smoke before the Lord. Here we're going to look at it in a second. But the sins in Genesis are kind of like unclear. It's like, well, what really happened there? We don't know. Whenever the Bible isn't clear about something, that's God inviting you to use your imagination, right? So you think, if God says, hey, I didn't give you the detail, so there's nothing wrong with you thinking of what it might be. And so again, we're going to see in a second, it's not for sure what the sin was. So you can use your imagination. Many think that maybe it was something sexual in nature. So geez, minor, I hope. If it is a sexual sin that Ham commits with his father, at best, maybe it was oral sex, but could it have been something else? Anal sex with his father, Noah. And then others say, well, maybe it wasn't something of sexual nature, but when we read in a second, you're going to think that it sounds like it might be sexual nature. But here, I'll make some comments here. But the key thing here is, as I tell Noah, my son Noah, I said, Noah, you know what? I said, and shame on me. Here, me and your mother gave you your name. I don't day-to-day think about how important Noah is. And I just mentioned a couple months ago, making Noah laugh. Noah in the Bible, Noah, I told him who you're named after, is so powerful or important that God uses language with Noah that he did with Adam. And it's almost like Noah was the second Adam. So it's almost like God, in essence, of course, as you remember, the world is just full of wicked people. So here's the key thing. Noah was the only righteous person on the planet. Right? It's one thing to be the most righteous person in the hill towns. Noah was the most righteous person on the planet at that time. So speaking of, here's an awesome man, which you would assume an awesome family. Noah and his family are the only ones chosen. But what I was going to say is, remember, the earth was, the Bible says that every person's thought was only wicked continually. There was violence in the land, not sharing or helping the poor. It was almost like the Bible gives the idea that God almost regretted. Some of this kind of carries the idea that God regretted making humans. So God says, that's it. I'm going to destroy every living thing. And here's the thing where Noah is so significant, talking about a good person that you would think would have a good family. God, in essence, says, look, you know what? I'm going to destroy every living thing. I kind of made a mess up with Adam and his nappy-headed kids as they're spreading all over the planet, killing each other and being violent towards one another. And here it is where Noah is so significant. The language with Noah is like God says, look, I'm going to start all over. I see this righteous man, hint, 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 hint. Here's this righteous man, Noah. He's the only one on the planet who's righteous. So I'm going to save him and his family, and I'm going to start all over. This whole human experiment thing was a clear flop. And now I'm going to start with Noah and get it right. So, of course, I say that, and God knew that Noah was still a descendant of Adam. But so imagery, or kind of like the imagery, is that God is starting over with Noah. But the key things you need to know before we read this is, you may be a righteous person, but I'd be very conceited for you to think that you're the most righteous person on the entire planet. Ready? Noah was the most righteous person as defined by God, not him saying it. God says that, hey, Noah was the only one on the earth at that time that was righteous. As we're going to see, if Noah, as awesome and righteous as he is, the second Adam, the head spring of everyone who's alive today, we can trace our lineage to his three sons that ultimately go back to Noah. But even Noah and all of his righteousness, as awesome his family's was, we're going to see Noah and his family was jacked up. And this is some freaky, freaky jacked up stuff, as we're about to see in a moment. Here's Genesis 9, 18 through 25. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. The people who were scattered over the earth came from Noah's three sons. Again, part of the reason why God just laughs from heaven at racism, at national pride or hatred of other people. God kind of looks at them and thinks, are you guys crazy? Why? This is in part because everyone who's scattered on the planet right now came from one of these three men, right? So God kind of looks at the whole point of like, well, I hate so-and-so because they're whatever nationality they are. It's just silly because we all are related. So verse 19, every person scattered on the earth right now are a descendant of one of Noah's three sons. Verse 20, Noah was a man who farmed the land. He decided to plant a field that produced grapes for making wine. When he drank some of the wine, it made him drunk. Then he lay down inside his tent without any clothes on. can use your mind's eye as you're picturing this. I was picturing him, doing a little garden, making grapes. Verse 22, Ham, Noah's son, saw his father naked. Then Ham, the father of Canaan, went outside and told his two brothers. What's missing there is, wait, what did you do when you saw him naked before going outside and telling the two brothers? We don't know. Right? But Shem and Japheth picked up a piece of clothing and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked backwards into the tent. They covered their father's body. They turned their faces away because they didn't want to see their father naked. Right? Again, so what's interesting is, okay, wait a minute. Ham saw his father naked. Something happened between seeing his father and going out to tell the others. We do see the contrast. The two other boys didn't even want to see him and walk up backwards to see it. Then Noah woke up from his sleep that was caused by the wine. He found out what his youngest son had done to him. So, of course, the question is, well, is it just seeing him? And I sometimes getting out of the pool, there's times when Jen yells at me and the boys, we're swimming and we got to hurry up, go change. Y'all are wet, we have a downstairs bathroom. So there's tons of times where I've been changing out of my clothes, changing out of my swimsuit, naked in front of the boys, and it wasn't cause to curse them. Right? I wasn't even drunk. It's just where I was crammed in one room, getting it wet. So just having your kids see you with no clothes on doesn't seem like that would be this horrific sin that would result in the curse of his grandson Canaan. So Noah woke up, and the key phrase is he found out what his youngest son had done to him. And that's what we said. We don't know. What was the done to him? Again, our minds can think, okay, wait, if he's drunk, and, again, I think some people have said, was it something of a sexual nature? Verse 25, he said, may a curse be put on Canaan, right? Ham's son, Canaan. May a curse be put on Canaan. He will be the lowest of slaves to his brothers. So here's Noah, the most righteous man on the world, with a son that you would think would share in that righteousness. His family is saved, the only family saved on the planet. The chosen family of all those who lived is in this situation that we see. Man, they are jacked up. What kind of freaky, nasty stuff was going on there involving a drunk, naked dad and his son? A comfort to me is to know that, geez, if Noah, who kids are named after, who God in essence says, get this, man, Adam and his wicked sons have messed up. I'm going to start all over with Noah. This one family who I'm going to save from all the earth, if his family can be jacked up, that's comfort and encouragement to me. Here's the next one. Abraham and his wife, Sarah. Abraham and his wife, Sarah, Genesis 12, 10 through 20, if you're taking notes. Genesis 12, 10 through 20, and then Genesis 22 through 5. Genesis 12, 10 through 20, then we'll see Genesis 20, 2 through 5. Abraham and his wife, Sarah. But first, this is more so women, metaphorically, you can cover your ears. This is just talking to the men. So any male that's listening to me, men, you may can relate to this. I've known guys, I think about past ministry, years in ministry, single pastor, pastoring in other churches, so no one here. I've known guys who had a big problem ever seeing, right? So just to see or be in the same place with a guy who had slept with their wife before they were married. So let's say if it's me and Jen, so imagine me just can't see. I knew guys that couldn't stand to see, wouldn't dare be in the same presence if they knew that Pete, who had slept with, we slept with Jennifer before we were married. So I knew guys, and that was kind of fascinating. I guess I kind of could understand, but in some ways I'm like, wow, right? So here's men, right? I can, off the top of my head, forgotten their names, but I can see them. But different guys who, I'm not coming to this event. We'd have like an activity or event. I'm not going because this guy's going to be there, and that person would be engaged now. But this person slept with my soon-to-be wife. I can't even be in the same place with them. Right? So imagine that. So now, men, right? If there's men who can't imagine seeing a guy who previously slept with their wife, imagine willingly offering up your wife to have relationships with another man. Basically just giving her up to live with this guy while you just tag along. Right? There's something just really sick about that, right? So just imagine, guys, hey, honey, I got an idea. This guy over there is going to kill me. So why don't you, I'm just going to hand you over there. You can be kind of like married to him. I'll live with you guys. I said, I'm going to be tagging along as you guys are, married. But just look, just take one for the team in essence, right? Or women, imagine how you would feel if the man who is supposed to love and protect and serve you says to you, hey, honey, why don't you just go along with this, right? Some bad things could happen to me. Why don't you just get with this guy over here? And, you just kind of, be married with him. You'll be married to this person. I'll tag along. You'll see me from time to time. But hey, I don't want anything bad to happen to me. So you just go sleep with this guy, right? We would think, well, that's jacked up, right? That's really jacked up. That involves the most significant family in all the Bible. You've heard me say it tons and tons and tons of times before. The star of the Bible who gets Best Actor award is God. Best Supporting Actor is Abraham. Most of us really just don't understand the significance of Abraham. The fact that you're Irish, you're Black, you're German, you're Scottish, but is on your way to heaven is the result of a promise God made to Abraham. I just don't understand that. The fact that you are heaven bound today is the result of a promise God made to Abraham. Abraham was so significant. He's the poster child for faith. Genesis 11, the Hall of Fame for faith. It's like, if you can use an imagery of a building that's like the Hall of Fame of faith. When you go into the Hall of Fame of faith, Genesis 11, the bulk of the building, much of the building would be dedicated to Abraham and his amazing faith. To just, oh God, you want me to go somewhere? Sure, I'll go. I'll pack up the U-Haul and I'm headed out. No questions asked. The point is, Abraham and his wife Sarah are so significant. Abraham is the poster child of faith. I would say he gets Best Supporting Actor in all of the Bible. Yet, despite that, the man whom God makes a promise that out of your seed, one of your descendants, Abraham, talking about Jesus, one of your seed is going to bless all the nations of the earth. Nations, plural, are going to come from you. Us, that if you know the Lord and you're Irish or Scottish or whatever, despite them being such a wonderful, righteous, amazing family, look how jacked up both of them are, with Abraham really taking the lead. There's Genesis 12, verse 10. At that time, there was not enough food in the land. They were in what is modern day Israel or Canaan. So Abram went down to Egypt. Right? So here's a famine. So he heads down to Egypt to live there for a while. As he was about to enter Egypt, he spoke to his wife, Sarai. He said, sweetheart, Sarah, girl, I know what a beautiful woman you are. The people of Egypt will see you and they're going to say, this is his wife. Then they're going to kill me, but they will let you live. So here's my plan. All families are jacked up. Tell them you are my sister. Then I'll be treated well and my life will be spared because of you. So what you don't see in that verse is Abraham knew that the system that Pharaoh had set up is that all the finest women who came to town, he would kill off the husband and send them to me. So it wasn't just, oh, lie and say it's my sister. It's lie, say you're my sister. He knew that, of course, Pharaoh would take her to be one of his wives. I don't think I get into it. Oh, here we go. Yep. So be treated well for my life, spared because of you, right? So wives, you think pretty selfish, right? Nowhere does Abraham I got an idea. As we're driving, we're on the outskirts. Hey, honey, we're a couple miles out from Egypt. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to let you stay in a hotel outside of town, and I'll just get food and bring it out to you, right? So as dumb as I am, I would have thought hey, Sarah, you just stay out because I know the system Pharaoh has that all the pretty girls get taken. But let's just, leave you, in a town outside. Remember, he had all those, he had, troops, armed men with him. Here, I'll have my guards keep you safe. I'll go into town, get food and bring it out. He could have thought of that. He could have just thought, hey, I'm going to get a bunch of people, get as much food as we can and bring it back to you here in Canaan, and I'll make trips. So nowhere does Abraham think of any kind of alternative to just, hey, Sarah, why don't I just hand you over to Pharaoh? He's going to sleep with you. You'll be married to him. At least I'll still be alive and I'll hang around. I'll see you in mornings at rec time, in the afternoon. Here's verse 14. Abram arrived in Egypt. The Egyptians saw that Sarai was a very beautiful woman. When Pharaoh's officials saw her, just like Abraham predicted, they told Pharaoh how beautiful she was. So she was taken into his palace. Pharaoh treated Abraham well because of her, verse 16 and 8. And of course, what you know or may not know is that God, clearly she was attractive, clearly Pharaoh wanted her because she was so attractive, but God miraculously intervened to make sure that he didn't have relations with her. Here's a totally different situation, right? So one says one thing, but here Abraham and Sarah does it again a second time, right? Nowhere do we see Sarah saying, "Are you crazy fool? I am not going to go just give myself to this man." Right? So she's right in with it. Different situation. Genesis 22 through 5. Genesis 22 through 5. So now, that was in Egypt with Pharaoh. He's now in the land of Gerar with a cat named Abimelech. King Abimelech has the same situation. If you're fine and you come into my town, you come to me and I'll kill off your husband. Genesis 22, there Abraham said about his wife Sarah, "She's my sister." Then Abimelech, the king of Gerar, sent for Sarah and took her. So God appeared to Abimelech in a dream one night. He said to him, "Man, you are good as dead because of the woman you have taken. She is already married." Verse 4, but Abimelech hadn't gone near her. Just like God kept Pharaoh from her, he keeps Abimelech from her. So he said, "Lord, will you destroy a nation that hasn't done anything wrong? Didn't Abraham and his jacked up self say to me that she's my sister? And didn't she also say," talking about a dysfunctional family, she's right there in on it, "He's my brother. I had no idea I was doing anything wrong." Right? So two different examples of, righteous, the poster child for faith, Abraham shows no faith, right? At this point in his life, both with Pharaoh and Abimelech, he had already received the promise that all the nations of the earth would be blessed from his seed, singular, that a nation, Israel, would come from him. So he knew all that. So as dumb as I am, someone would have told me that, wait, not like today where we think God's telling us. Abraham clearly heard and saw God appear to him multiple times, telling him that, the nation Israel would come from you, nations plural would come from you, and one particular descendant of yours is going to bless all the nations of the earth. So somewhere in there, I should have thinking, wait a minute, there's no way I'm going to get knocked off. I don't have any kids yet. So I can't imagine God lied to me. So I would have been in there, "Pharaoh, get your hands off my wife." And, so he should have had the faith to know that somehow God was going to protect him without devising this crazy concocted plan. Two different times, Abraham and Sarah also a woman of faith, they both showed that their family was jacked up. Here's the last example, David and his son Absalom. King David and his son Absalom in 2 Samuel 15, verses 13 and 14. 2 Samuel 15, 13 and 14. So just for a second, imagine if you have a son, imagine your own son pursuing you to kill you. Right? So imagine that you just, you get this message from somebody that, hey, you're, if you don't have a son, you imagine a child or, a kid that you mentored if you don't have kids. Imagine getting the news in the middle of the night, hey, so-and-so is trying to kill you. We saw him down at the gas station. He's loading up. He's got a bunch of guys with him. They got guns. They're coming to kill you. And this is your own flesh and blood, your own picture, your firstborn or your son. And now imagine having to be on the run. So now you're loading up your car, you're getting your wife and what all you have, you're headed, wherever you go, heading out west, you're heading somewhere. But imagine being on the run because your own son, not some ticked off neighbor, not deranged something, your own flesh and blood is pursuing you to kill you. That didn't need any imagination for David, as we're going to see here in 2 Samuel 15, 13 and 14. A messenger came and spoke to David. He told him, "The hearts of the Israelites are turned toward Absalom," who was David's son. Then David spoke to all of his officials who were with him in Jerusalem. He said, "Come on, we have to leave right away. If we don't, none of us will escape from Absalom. He'll move quickly to catch up with us. He'll destroy us." Can you imagine? Speaking of family matters, right? A family is supposed to be an oasis, a lighthouse for others, a respite from the pressures and evils of working and putting up with neighbors and dysfunctional friends. Family is meant to be an oasis. Yet here's David, King David, the only person in the Bible who is said to be a man after God's own heart, on the run from his own son. Right? David and Absalom. Sarah and Abraham, shows us again that all families, Noah and his son, all families, even the great godly people of the Bible, were in families that were jacked up. So, by way of application, every family in the Bible had issues or poor family dynamics, dysfunctional stuff, even the best of them, as we've just seen today. Therefore, God knows and understands our families are jacked up. Right? The most awesome godly families in the Bible all were jacked up, had dysfunctional issues, as we just saw there. Hopefully, it's a comfort to know that God knows that all families are jacked up. You and I need to know that all families are jacked up, right? It's easy to, Satan sometimes can lie to us that, oh, so and so, what's the name? The McBrides, just making up a name. The McBrides, look how their kids are just so well behaved. The oldest girl, she's headed to Villanova on a full ride scholarship. The other one's going to Princeton. Oh, I wish my kids were like that. Even the McBrides, a made up family name, they have issues. Every family this side of Eden is jacked up. God knows it. He understands it. We need to know and understand it, that there's no family that has it all together. They may look like it, and I don't mean in a pretense way, like trying to make you think. I can just think of families and couples where I'm like, boy, I just simply have such the perfect marriage. And it's not like they're like, oh, honey, what can I get you? It's not that. It's just, it just seems like them being natural. They're just so perfect. Every family is jacked up. Number two, because God knows and understands all our families have issues, dysfunctions, things that are not what God originally planned, He is more merciful and gracious to you and our families than we'll ever know. You need to know that God is more gracious, more merciful. He knows that you're suffering due to family dynamics that are jacked up. It's just not what He meant to be. He's merciful, right? Meaning He's holding back consequences that could get worse, right? You may say, well, my situation is bad. God could allow it to get worse, but He hasn't. God is gracious, giving us things we don't deserve. God knows and understands that all of our families have dysfunction and issues. He's more merciful. He's more gracious to you than you ever know. God is for you and your family. And I use that purposely, right? You guys know I'm a big Bills fan. Like to me, like a sports fan is for something, right? See the people with a tattoo, or saw a guy with a Bills logo on his calf. That is for something. Sometimes we need to be reminded that God doesn't just love you. Like to me, like, oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, God loves me. God loves you and your family. It's dysfunction and all, but He's for you. The way a sports fan would get a tattoo of their favorite team on their calf, every piece of clothing they wear is a Bills memorabilia or something. That's someone who's really for the Bills or whatever their favorite sports team is. God is for you and your family, and He knows the dysfunctional dynamics that are involved. If you did something that caused an issue in your family, right? And so again, none of us are perfect. So if you did something that caused an issue, God is merciful and gracious to you, even if it's a mistake that you did. Right? So not naming anything specific, but sometimes maybe, going back to that hypothetical. So let's pretend it's me. So, I had a couple too many pops 2 Super Bowls ago. And so here I shouldn't have been drinking that much. And I'm, go off on my brother. So hypothetical, I don't have a brother. So here I'm like, you know what? I don't like this about you. Totally the beer drinking, not me. So clearly that's my fault. And now the brother isn't talking to me. It's caused all these other, he's splitting the family. Certain siblings are on his side, others on my side. Even if it's a mistake of my own doing, God is merciful and gracious because He knows all families are fallen. The absent father, right? So maybe some of us would say that, hey, you know what? At that time, I just had to work the long hours. I wasn't like this, material trying to buy a Mercedes. No, I had to work 20-something hour days just to make ends meet. So I wasn't there for my kids. And now my kids aren't the same towards me. Now that they're older, God is merciful, understands when families are messed up due to an action or inaction on our part. God is merciful and gracious, even when we or someone is the cause of family dynamics. The last point of application from this first point, because the Bible shows us all families, even the best of them, King David, a man after God's own heart, on the run from his son. Abraham, the poster child of faith. The reason that all human beings today are going to heaven is the result of a promise made to him, and his family was jacked up. Because the Bible shows us all families are jacked up, we can and must Be transparent with one another. And it doesn't mean you just got to go tell anybody issues are going on at home or with your family, but just know that a freeing, a liberating thing can be is right when I really, really understand that, hey, Pete and Mildred, boy, it looks like their marriage is so perfect. He took her to this romantic thing in the Bahamas the other day, and she's always letting them watch the Yankees play instead of having them go off antiquing. And their kids seem so well behaved. They're always yes sir, yes ma'am. Right? The beauty of the Bible telling us that all families are jacked up is that even that family that we think is so perfect, they're jacked up. We can be transparent with one another. There's no need to hide. There's no need to sugarcoat, right? So if I truly, truly believe that the Bible shows that all families are jacked up, I don't have to be ashamed or embarrassed over the jacked upness of my house, right? So yeah, sure, maybe my jacked upness looks different than your jacked up, but the key thing is, and again, to people that you love and can trust, I'm not saying that just go to any old stranger, but our church, family dynamics could be smoothed and improved by us taking the makeup off, taking the mask off, and just being intimate with one another, sharing about the challenges in our family. The good news is the person shouldn't judge you because they should be aware that their family is jacked up. And so that's a final, very liberating thing that can help us ease through family dynamics. It's possible that by you taking your makeup off, taking the mask off, talking to me about family dysfunctions going on in your life, that could trigger for me to be able to help you because I'm dealing with the same thing, or that was something that happened in our past. So again, all families are jacked up. We saw some practical applications from that. Every family had issues. God knows and understands that. Because he knows our families are all fallen, he's more merciful and gracious to us than we'll ever know. He's more merciful, more gracious to us, even if we're the cause of it. At the time, well, I didn't know better. That's just how I raised kids. I didn't realize they would come back to bite me, or that's how I talked to my wife. My dad talked to my mom that way. That's how I talked to my wife. And now it's coming back to get me. God is merciful and understanding. And then lastly, because the Bible shows us all families are jacked up, we can and must take the makeup off, take the mask off, be transparent with one another. Right? If I could be of an assistance with this part of the series, let me know. Something going on in your life, utterly unrelated, let me know. And next week, we look at God's original intent for families. Here's what it should be like. We'll look at that next week. And then just know that, unfortunately, I have to step out to get to my son's game right away.